David Smith here with another Flipped Classroom math video. A few tips before we start. Remember that you can speed up or slow down the playback if that helps you follow along. You can also pause the video at any point to catch up with your notes or to try the problems before I explain. Lastly, you could turn on the captions and follow along with my words on the bottom of your screen. Today's lesson covers the relationship between linear equations and linear functions. And truth be told, there's really not a whole lot of new material here, so we're going to get a chance to practice some stuff, finish up with a nice word problem. So let's take a look. So this is a linear equation in gradient intercept format. Let me fix my C there. And it can be written in function notation. In fact, we have been doing this already. So let's get started with three different functions, f of x, g of x, and h of x, and we're going to do some problems. Okay, three questions for you to do, and this should all be review for you. So pause the video right now and finish these up. Do your best. I think you should do just fine. Okay, let's see how you did. Here's my work for the first one, f of 2 plus g of negative 1. I did all my steps in there, simplified down. I get negative 10. I hope you did too. If you didn't, check your work. Second one is a composite function, f of h of x. So what we do is we take the negative 6, plug it into h of x first, get our result, then take that result and plug it into f of x right there. Crunch our numbers, get down to minus 9. Hope you got there. If you didn't, pause the video, check your work. Finally, it's asking for the domain and range of g of x. So we're looking at g of x. Are there any restrictions on the domain? No. We can put any number we want in there. No divide by zero problems, no negative square root problems. So the domain and range, or the domain of that function of g of x is negative infinity to infinity. And in fact, the range is the same thing. So we could write that. So d equals and r equals negative infinity to infinity. All right, let's practice finding inverse functions. This was challenging for some of us, so I have an easy one, a little harder, and a little harder. If you feel bold, pause the video right now and do these three problems. Let's take a look at that first one. Okay, I'm going to walk you through these steps so that we can go quicker on the next two. Wrote it in equation form. Switched the x and the y. Subtracted 4 from both sides to isolate my y term. Got my y term alone by dividing both sides by 6. Just switch the order so I have y on the left-hand side. Change it into inverse function notation. I have x minus 4 over 6. If you didn't get that, pause the video and rework that problem. Make sure you can get to here. Second problem. Inverse, g inverse of x with root x plus 2 minus 4. Pause the video and try that one. Let's see how you did. Equation, switched my x and y's. Moved my 4 over, squared both sides, expanded the binomial, and finally combined it by subtracting 2 and wrote it in function notation. If you didn't get that one, pause the video and find your mistake. Okay, let's do the last one. This one was a little tricky on the quiz. Several people messed up, so here's another chance to practice that problem. Okay, let's see how you did. So check this out. Switched my x and y in equation form. I did my distributive property on the bottoms to get them on one side. I switched these two terms to get the two y terms on that side. I factored out the y, then I divided by x minus 1, and finally turned that into inverse function notation with minus 4x over x minus 1. Again, if you didn't get that, pause the video and troubleshoot your steps. All right, let's do a story problem that encompasses some of that stuff we just did. So here's our example. We have a video streaming service that charges British pounds, that's this fancy L, $6.99 per month. So for streaming, you pay $6.99 a month. Additionally, you're going to pay 0.99 pounds for each premium movie. So obviously there's some movies on there that you can watch, but you do have to pay a little bit for them. So I want you to pause the video right now and write a function and define your variables. Here's what I get. F of x is 0.99x plus 6.99. Again, British pounds, where x is the number of premium movies. And this makes sense. Here's the monthly cost. You're going to pay that no matter what. And then for each premium movie, which is represented by X, you're going to pay 0.99 more. So pretty good. If you used G of Y or something else, as long as you're correct with everything else, you're fine. So now I want you to find the inverse of that function. Pause the video and do that. Okay, so here's what I get. I switched my X and my Y, and then I solved again for Y and put it in function notation. So we're there. Now I'm going to ask you a thinking question. What does this function represent in terms of our situation? What does this function let you calculate? Pause the video, think about that, write down your answer. Okay, let's see how you did. In this case, the inverse function allows you to calculate how many movies were rented, how many premiums were rented for a given monthly bill. So if I tell you that the bill was some number, then you can use this function, to calculate how many premiums were rented. All right, so let's do that calculation. Here's how I'm going to phrase that problem. First off, here's our inverse function from the last board, right there. Now here's your question. This would be question D. If the total monthly cost is $18.87, how many premium movies were rented? So go ahead and pause the video and do that calculation. So here's how I do that one. F inverse of 1887, crunch it through, we end up with exactly 12 premium movies. So one important distinction here is that in the inverse function, the X, the input value, is actually the output value from the regular function. So you'll remember that the regular function was used to calculate the monthly cost based on a known quantity of premium movies. The inverse function is used the opposite way. If you know the total monthly cost, you can use the inverse function to calculate, in this case, the X stands for the number of premium movies. Now, this problem could be made quite a bit harder by just simply giving you the original function and then asking you to create a function that calculates the number of premium movies based on the total rental cost. So you'd have a big critical thinking step to figure out that, oh, that means I need to find the inverse function, and then I could use my inverse function to do my calculation. Now that you've finished, take a moment to write down any questions so you can bring them to our next class and get some help. You can also watch the video again to improve your understanding. If you enjoyed the video, please click the like button down below, and if you'd like to help me grow my YouTube channel, please click subscribe.